What did you see from Ohio State against Tennessee, and what was the biggest difference in the Buckeyes when you watched them out on the field?
They were aggressive. They didn't overthink things. And that's not the players. That's about the coaching staff. I think the Michigan game, they overthought it, and it was a terrible game plan, and they did not put their best players in positions to be their best players, and it was a complete 180 against Tennessee. I have been an advocate of throw the darn ball, right? There's the run the ball. I'm throw the ball. And it's not because I just want to see air raid offenses. It's because Ohio State has made it a point to go recruit and develop NFL level quarterbacks and wide receivers. So why would you do that than not use them? And that's exactly what happened against Michigan. Jeremiah Smith had more yards on his first catch of the college football playoff than he did the entire Michigan game. That's not good, and that's why you ended up losing to Michigan. But it's also why you beat Tennessee. You targeted him early. You targeted Emeka Buka early. You didn't get Carnell Tate involved, but you got the running backs involved in the pass game. G. Scott, I think, had his best game as a tight end as Ohio State. But you were aggressive and you leaned into what makes you elite. While Jim Knowles, this is probably the best defense of the Ryan Day era, maybe even before the Ryan Day era, maybe a few years back. When you look at the numbers, when you look at the way he's got them playing aggressive and the way he's calling the game, that was the most complete game Ohio State has played all season. And now, can you do it three more times?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. Offensively, it seemed to me like, hey, they got the balls to their playmakers in space.
Yeah.
There were so many times, whether it was Henderson or Smith, even Judkins, there were no defenders in the screen when they caught the ball. When you go out and you get elite athletes like they've recruited, I think you're right. It's not rocket science. Fast guys that are more athletic than the opposition, give them the ball and make the opposition try to figure out how to tackle them.
You have good players, use them. I don't know if you need to pay somebody $10 million to know that part of the equation. I also just think there's also the element of FCC team coming up north. We saw before in the pregame where Tennessee players are coming out and warm up shirtless and all that stuff. But it's just interesting. What this boils down to is Ohio State executed, and then they were tough during the 60 minutes of the game, not for the 60 minutes after it or before it. They were tough in the 60 minutes of the game, and by that toughness, that doesn't mean running the ball up the middle and proving you can run the ball. It means executing what you are good at, and that's what Ohio State did for 60 minutes.
They got after the quarterback, and I thought in the first half
Yeah.
he was a little rattled. The quarterback, and he, again, a good quarterback. He kind of settled down a little bit, but I think the entire first quarter, I think he was surprised, and they made it a point to make sure they knew the defense. He knew the defense was coming.
Yeah, I said coming into that game on our podcast, Buckeye Talk, that was probably one of the keys to the game. Nico Iamaleava had never really played in an environment like that before. I think the closest thing to it was the Georgia game. And if you go watch that Georgia loss, they kind of did the same thing to him. The defense got after him a little bit. Carson Beck played well, and they forced Nico to perform at a level he had never proven he was able to perform at in an environment he had never played in. Now take that, make it 40 degrees colder, and make the stakes a lot higher against a team in another conference who was angry and desperate coming into that game when Ohio State took the ball first and went and scored and put Tennessee in a position where they had to go score a touchdown or they were at risk of going down 14 to nothing. And then they went down 14 to nothing and they had to score a touchdown or they were going to go down 21 to nothing. And that's what happened. They were down 21 to nothing with 6 minutes left in the first quarter. That's the hottest start Ohio State's had all season. So the combination of they came out aggressive, which required Josh Heupel to lean on a quarterback who maybe isn't ready to be leaned on quite like that. I think Nico's got a bright future, but that's a lot to ask a young quarterback to be able to thrive in a situation like that, and he wasn't ready to do so. And that's advantage Ohio State, especially when you're playing at home.